is talking about an energetical shift from something experiencing this to nobody experiencing this, nothing experiencing this, or mystery experiencing this, or no longer a location experiencing this. And sometimes I point to consciousness. Mostly I point to that to relax the person, because the separate person gets itself into quite a state, because it's based its life on an illusion. It's based its life on I am separate and I'm in relationship to the world, and it forms all these very neurotic patterns after many years of being separate, of seeking and believing that it's incomplete, it's not enough, and then seeking for that completion in time. So sometimes I talk about consciousness or awareness or all these different things, or I talk about emotional release and feeling your feelings in order to help the person relax. Now your next question is, so does that lead you closer to enlightenment? But it doesn't work like that. That statement, that idea, belongs to a separate person that's seeking in time and seeing itself in time. You can relax the person, you can give information which makes the person's life better, but that's not awakening. Awakening is an energetical thing, and it's way beyond our intellectual comprehension of it. And I'm not saying that doing non-duality, you should do non-duality, or you shouldn't do non-duality, or you should or shouldn't do emotional release. I could tell you these things will relax you, but as soon as you start saying they're going to get you to liberation, you're speaking in a different world. You can't speak like that about non-duality. So, and people often interpret what I say as she's saying, don't do anything. I've got to not do anything. And that's totally not what I'm saying. I'm saying there is nobody doing anything. That doesn't mean that doing doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that apparent process in time doesn't happen. But there is never anybody separate doing anything. Life is simply happening, and it's so mysterious and divine, and it's all about what's actually happening, not what you think is happening, not a timeline. The timeline arises in this, but is in no way an experiencer of this. The experiencer is totally still and in movement, and it's only ever here. Freedom isn't the intellectual realization of oneness. It's not intellectually understanding what I say, although that will all relax the person, that will all relax the thinking. The freedom is the energetic movement, and this is way beyond our comprehension by the intellect. But yet it's happening. These bodies now are listening to non-duality. And in that, in awakening, in the apparent awakening process, the character, not the identification, but the character has to become completely itself. The identification, the separation, is always about the character not being the character. The identification is always trying to be a better character. So if you're a nosy character, it wants to stop and trying to be nosy. It wants to look non-nosy. If you're angry, maybe it wants to look happy. If you're sad, whatever it is, it always wants to be something else. That's identification. And as that identification lessens or begins to fall away, then the character has to become fully itself. There's no longer an internal and external world anymore. There's no longer an internal character that's trying to be something. It is as it is. So you could say an absolute vulnerability to life. So everything that's coming out is directly from source, not going from somebody through somebody that's trying to make it something else in time. I am a good person in time. I am a bad person in time, or whatever it is. That person in time is never happy with the present moment. It always wants the future and normally wants to avoid the past or get back to something from the past. That person in time can't live in the present moment. It never existed here. It's always seeking for something inside in time. It's seeking, is unconscious, and it's seeking for pleasure in the future in the belief that that pleasure is completion. And it's seeking for pleasure is based on what it feels it lacks. And what it feels it lacks is always unconscious, very, very unconscious. So if as a child, say, you weren't loved enough by your father, then maybe there is a seeking for male attention, there is seeking for male approval, whatever it is. And it makes up these dynamics, but you're not conscious of it. What you're conscious of, what the separate person is conscious of, is what it's going for. But it's not even conscious that it's going for something. To the separate person, it's just fixated on one thing. And that fixation could be hatred, how much it hates someone. But basically what it's trying to do through that hatred, or that repetition of hatred of someone, is it's trying to get that person to behave in a way in which it feels loved. And in some warped way, it's repeating hatred stories to try and feel safe and to try to get to a position of feeling loved. So the seeker, the separate person, is always seeking to fulfill its stories in time. And then over apparent time, the stories get more and more neurotic and negative because the person can never complete it. So if there's fear around money, the mind keeps imagining money and how to fix it and how to get more money, how to, or who took your money. But really it all comes down to lack. The separation starts, you feel lack, and therefore you're obsessed with fulfilling that lack and avoiding fear. These are the two main feelings that come from separation: fearfulness and lack. And that separate person has its own unique individual patterning as to what it's seeking for. So safety, love, security, all these sorts of things. And it's the mind obsesses about getting them. And when something in the flow challenges that, so if somebody takes your money or takes away love, then the mind will obsess about how to get it back or how much it hates that person. And really what the mind, the seeking, is trying to do is get to completion, is get to a place of wholeness. But it can never get to wholeness in the mind. It can never get to wholeness in the seeking, because the seeking is always in time. And time is never freedom. The freedom is the timeless in which the time arises. And this moment is the timeless. What's happening is the timeless.